Reacting to headlines today, special investigation into a massive fertilizer loot. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalithaa has demanded the DMK Minister Alagiri be sacked. So Jayalalithaa there demanding Alagiri's resignation over alleged fertilizer scam. Headlines today had earlier exposed how fertilizer subsidies were being disbursed, and there were alleged irregularities in that which were leading to undue gains to fertilizer industry, a certain lobby there in Tamil Nadu at the expense of poor farmers. Priyamvada now joins us with more details. Priyamvada, just take us to the exact comments of Jayalalithaa, how she's now raising the heat on the centre to sack Alagiri, the fertilizers minister, for remaining mum on the alleged fertilizer scam.
Jayalalithaa has come down heavily on the Prime Minister, DMK leader Karunanidhi and Alagiri, reacting to the headlines today's story about the fertilizer scam. Jayalalithaa has demanded, why is Alagiri maintaining silence? Why is he not talking about this? She's demanded the Prime Minister to sack the minister who was responsible for this 1,000 crore loss to the government exchequer. She goes on to say that this 1,000 crore actually belongs to the farmers, poor farmers. He's hit the farmers. The ministry alleges that the minister has eaten away the money of the poor farmers, and in collision with the companies, the corporates of the fertilizer company. She has basically pointed out, reiterated the headlines today's story, how the fertilizer companies were given a free hand, keep increasing the prices on one hand. On the other hand, however, there is a subsidy for the fertilizer. She has also demanded a CBI inquiry to find out exactly the loss in this particular loot, and also to find out who are all responsible for this. So Jayalalithaa has demanded Karunanidhi, Alagiri and Prime Minister to react on this immediately. She's also taken a very critical stand on how Alagiri told headlines today that Prime Minister should answer this. Jayalalithaa has basically said in her statement that now that the minister itself has asked the Prime Minister to answer, she's demanded the Prime Minister to give an answer to why his cabinet colleague, why his cabinet minister was given a free hand to operate, which has affected the farmers.
Right, Priyamvada, just give us a brief backdrop of the backstory here, considering the MOS, Jaya, had written several notes to Alagiri, and so far there's been absolute silence from the Union Fertilizers Minister over how his MOS has raised alarm several times, but there's been no response from the Minister on how the fertilizer lobby is benefiting at the expense of poor farmers.
Well, in this year itself, at least 2 times the fertilizer prices, the retail price of the fertilizer has increased. And fertilizer is very, very important for all the farmers, especially the cotton farmers. And at the same time, on one hand, when the price was increasing, on the other hand, subsidy was being given. Also, our headlines today, an investigation basically revealed how the subsidy was benefiting only the fertilizer manufacturers. They were also giving an extra money in form of transportation. So, per metric ton, around 5,000 rupees is what the profit that the fertilizer company was making. But while they were making this profit, they were in no way concerned about the farmers, because the retail price of the fertilizer was increasing. Jaya had written about this 5 times at least to the internal loan notes were given to Alagiri, the cabinet minister, but even once he did not respond.
Alright, Priyamvada, just stay on with us. We're also getting some political reactions now. CPM leader Mohammed Salim now joins us on the phone line. Mr. Salim, your reaction: Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, who is a known political adversary of the DMK's first family, has demanded resignation of Alagiri over the alleged fertilizer scam. But do you think the Prime Minister needs to step in? Because we have details of how his MOS, fertilizer ministry, Mr. Jaya, had written several notes to Alagiri seeking his attention on the issue of how the money was, the fertilizer industry is actually getting undue gain. Do you think the Prime Minister needs to step in and seek answers from the fertilizer minister?
This is more than the personal thing and the relation between DMK and DMK. It's a fertilizer scam, and I think the Prime Minister's office is keeping silence for long, because since the beginning, the left was also saying, when they talk about subsidy in the fertilizer, they say it is the subsidy to the big companies and subsidizing the corruption and inefficiency. And there is a collaborative stand from the central government offices, departments, ministers and the fertilizer companies. the farmers are running from pillar to post to avail of fertilizers at the time of need, and secondly, they are giving their price far above the market price because it's black marketing, and the companies are involved, the big companies. The government has given in the name of the decontrol of fertilizer and the name of the passing the fertilizer subsidy to the companies with the good hope that the companies will give it to the lower price. But actually they are creating an atmosphere and marketing strategy where instead of manufacturing here, the fertilizer factories are closed, they are importing fertilizers and over-invoicing it, and they are getting the subsidy on the basis of the price that is over-invoiced, and this is crores and crores of rupees are being siphoned off in the name of the farmers and the agriculture, but ultimately the agriculture and farmers are the receiving end, and the corrupt politicians and bureaucrats and the big companies, corporate sectors, and particularly big pharmaceutical companies, fertilizer companies, they are getting richer and richer. Right? And when Prime Minister's office is keeping silence, despite the repeated notes and letters, and this point is being raised in Parliament, and even Mr. Jaya has written, so that seems that in the name of the liberalization, they are trying to do the same thing to make the companies happy and to make the farmers suffer.
Mohammed Salim, thank you very much for joining us with your reactions. So, Jayalalithaa there demanding Alagiri's resignation, his sacking by the Prime Minister, a red-faced DMK there after these allegations surfaced. Let's in fact break down for you what exactly is this fertilizer scam. Here's a headlines today special investigation.
In 2012 alone, Jaya fired at least 5 internal notes to Alagiri. In each case, he was greeted with silence from the other end. It began with a note early last year, in which Jaya made a dramatic claim. We now tell you how, in one go, the exchequer lost 1,000 crore rupees. Despite Jaya's repeated SOS, Alagiri allegedly didn't lift a finger to stop this hemorrhaging of the taxpayers' money. It's the kind of money that can build a highway or a dam for farmers. Instead, fertilizer prices kept rising, driving farmers to suicide. Then early in 2012, Jaya alerted Alagiri to a specific order passed by his officials. It laid bare his ministry's collusion with private companies to get more subsidies than they were entitled to. Jaya pointed out that in early 2012, the government was expected to reduce fertilizer subsidy in tune with the falling international prices. Many companies devised a plan to use this to their advantage. They sought the release of large amounts of fertilizer stocks in the market despite it being a lean farming season. Once the stocks were moved, the companies would become entitled to the subsidy prevailing at that time. But before they could do that, they needed an official go-ahead from Alagiri's department.
Jaya wrote to the department that the proposed movement of fertilizers was aimed to get fat subsidies and thus should not be allowed. But to his shock, Jaya found that the department had already issued the orders.